Hello and welcome back to the channel. We are doing an EICR and some remedials on this one today. It's for a letting agent that we work for quite a bit. You see I've got Matthew in the cupboard, busy doing his thing. Nathan's here with us as well, making sure the actual job gets done properly. So I thought we'd go through the property in full. It's got a new consumer unit on. I think it's split load, is it, Matthew? Yeah, split load board. And yeah, this is the entrance hall, so we've got lights, smoke alarms, check the dates on. We've got some outside lighting on this one as well. See through into the front room. Some class 1 light fittings. Looks to have been recently modernised, so there's new electrical accessories on everywhere. Yeah, it looks a pretty good one actually. So this is a private rental. See in the kitchen, it's fairly nice. Modern spotlights, fire rated, which is good to see. And again, the heat detector to check the date on. Some pendants across what I assume would have had a dining table above it, and then a few spotlights as well, fire rated and dropped in. You can see here new electrical accessories. That's the guys just tidying up inside the meter area. So in there there's a water bond that wasn't the right size, so we're upgrading that to 10mm. Some of the submains going out to the garage, a steel wire armour that needs cleating, and the trunking wasn't covering an entry point to the top of the consumer unit correctly, so we're just tidying that up. They're in there doing that. You can see here we've got the accessories, oven, all to be tested, and like I say, we've already done a lot of the inspection work already this morning, so they're on with getting it straightened out. So it's ready for the new occupiers to move in. I'll show you inside the consumer unit in a little bit as well. We'll just have a little look in there once Matthew's finished. Oh, get my hand out the way for the dual camera thing. So I'm trying the dual record again so you can see me as I wander around talking. Hope that's not too confusing on camera. We've got a nice front bedroom again, class 1 lighting, so we need to be checking we've got earth on the lighting circuit. Little ensuite in there with a fan isolator, and yeah, it's got an inline fan up in the ceiling, and again fire rated spotlights. All new electrical accessories again around here. The world's biggest loft hatch. That's brilliant, isn't it? As a tradesperson, you want a nice big entry point. So that's always good. Better than wriggling through some of these little loft hatches you get in older houses. And again, light fitting. These could have all been fitted by tenants or landlords potentially, so we need to be checking the terminations on those whenever they've been changed over from normal pendants. Always worth a good look. Sorry about that, a call came in and cut off the recording. That's one of the downsides to using your phone to shoot all your YouTube footage. There's a garage outside, so we've got a bit out there to sort out as well. There is power out to it, and we'll go out there and have a look in a bit. And yeah, I'm going to jump down to the consumer unit. I'll show you inside of that, and we can do a little bit of testing down there as well. Explain some of the things we've found through the inspection, so you'll see when we go into the main intake. Matthew's in there sorting them out already, but we've got a bit of a IP issue on top of the consumer unit. We've also got a water bond that was undersized, some cables that weren't quite secured right. Around the rest of the install, again outside, there's a steel wire armour going to the garage that needed some cleats on it, and also some twin and earth out there that needed a few clips and just tidying up. So this has had some work not too long ago. It's not in bad nick, we see a lot worse. So I'll show you around at the consumer unit and we'll carry on with the video. Let's go down there now, see if Matthew's anything like finished. Probably not. You nearly done in there, Matthew? Just needs some bigger washers. So I'll let him get on with some work and have a little wander around myself, and we'll jump back on with the video in a little bit. Okay, so outside we've got the steel wire armour that runs along here that someone's cleated in rather nicely. Drops around this corner, under the ground, under the pavers, and then up into the garage. There is an outside socket on the wall there as well. We've got a little light on the front where there's some twin and earth that's been used. Not showing any signs of solar degradation yet because it's fairly recent, I think. A little consumer unit in there which is just doing the sockets and the lights. So we've got the steel wire armour coming up, a little bit of conduit across to this socket, and then as I say, that drops down, punches through outside. Point of note, that's always an interesting one. We have an RCD out at the garage, but obviously it's a split load board inside as well. So we've got that RCD in series, not a massive factor in a domestic property, to be totally truthful, but you know, we are supposed to step them down, so there's some sort of selectivity between them. Pretty difficult to achieve. To be honest, they've just wasted an RCD out here. They could have had a main switch and done away with it, but there you go, it's in there. It's not really doing an awful lot of harm. Show you how we code that in our report. And again, we've got a little batten light in here and the old twin and earth that's been clipped up reasonably tidy around the top. You know, nothing too horrendous with anything that's out here. Just a few little bits to tidy up. So there's the shroud on the steel wire armour cable under the consumer unit that's not quite covering the whole gland and armour ins, and also a bit of twin and earth that's out in the sunlight, and the RCD's in series. Yeah, we'll press on with the video. I'll show you in the consumer unit. I'll run through some of the issues we've found and some of the things we've done to sort them out. So check back in a sec. So we just had a neighbour come over and explain this light behind us was staying on all the time. The roof had been worked on last week, and I think the roofers have just maybe affected the settings on the light. So we've adjusted them down. It was set so it would be on for the maximum amount of time and in direct sunlight. So we've adjusted that now. You can see behind me it's gone off, and hopefully it's back to working as a normal PIR light. So it's always worth paying attention to the neighbours. You know, they can give you some valuable insight before the tenant moves in and says the light's always staying on. Okay, so Matthew and Nathan are about done now on their little repair session. I'm going to jump in and have a look through the CU. We'll run through some final tests and make sure everything's in order. Then we can get the paperwork sorted and hand this one back to the letting agent. We have got a bit of new uniform that I've been getting some B-roll of with Matthew and Nathan. So we've got nice new hoodies and new jackets. Nice and warm, Nathan?
Yep.
Yeah, it's getting a good solid review. Matthew is still waiting for his coat because he needs extra fat size, don't you, Matthew?
Yeah. Extra large.
No, they didn't have the extra large in stock, so we're both still cold. Nathan's a Slim Jim, so he's got his nice and early. But yeah, I'll press on with this video now. These two can clear off to the next job. You're going to a customer out in Foxholes now. So let's jump inside here and take a look. Okay, so you can see the consumer unit there. We've got the cover off, and again, when you're doing your EICR, you're there to report on the installation, not share your opinion on the workmanship. We would address this differently, but we can work with it. There's plenty of room in there. It's certainly not going to stop us carrying on. In terms of what we discovered as regards the initial observations, we had an issue with the IP rating at the top of the consumer unit because the trunking wasn't covering an entry point. And the same, it was missing some grommets as well, so we've got that to straighten up and finish off, but we've pulled the trunking forward so at least it covers all of the entry points, and we can just tidy up the lid and make sure we're hunky-dory there. We had some flapping around of cables as well. This steel wire armour wasn't secured. We're going to get these tails into a bit better fixing as well, so we can sort those out. The gas bond was only in 4mm, so we've upgraded that to a nice 10mm. And that's going across to the earth block down there. These boiler cables were just flapping about in the breeze, so we've secured those up as well. Interesting point to note, the boiler is on a plug top, does have a 3 amp fuse in it, and obviously you can provide your isolation from there. So we're here to sort out anything that's potentially dangerous, so it's ready for the next occupier, and then obviously anything else just goes into the report for the letting agent and landlord to discuss. There is a little fuse spare up there that was causing a bit of confusion for myself because I thought that was linked into the boiler somehow, but it isn't. There is a wall mounted mirror the other side of this wall, which I'll jump around and show you in a second. But before we move on with the video, I just want to re-emphasise a point I made through the Save for September campaign, because there may be some of you itching to pound onto your keyboards about a consumer unit open with all the main switches and MCBs and RCDs on. Obviously the buzz bar is missing its cover as well in here, so that's going to need to go into the report. But if we take a little look down there, I have actually locked off the main switch on the install. I wouldn't normally bother fitting the lock and the hasp when it's just me inside the property. You know, I'm happy with a toggle on there so there can be no accidental energization of this, but for demonstration purposes on the video I've popped them on because why not. One thing I will say that a lot of lecturers do, because I think this is a good thing to do, when I was speaking with Craig down at Walthamstow about this, is to use a hasp for the reason that, you know, you can give the learners the opportunity to carry out a lock off themselves and practice that, but you can also apply your lock yourself as the lecturer and person in control of that. isolation. And then if you are to leave them, to go to the toilet, for example, you know that that energy cannot be reinstated while you're not present. So I would always say that even if you're in a training environment, getting people to use hasps and to understand why they are used is a brilliant thing. So if you are a lecturer and you're carrying out lockouts in the classroom, maybe consider chucking a hasp on there, just to teach people the different roles we all play when performing isolations, and how you can keep yourself in control of that even when you're not present. But moving on with this video now, I can switch all these off because they're actually annoying me by being in the on position. That was just me setting up a little clip for the video. I'm going to run through some dead tests now on this board. I'll try and get some of it on camera with the TIS MFT Pro Plus. Before I move on with that, I'll just jump out of this cupboard and try not to bang my head again. Already done that about 4 times. This is the mirror on the other side of the wall I was talking about, and that's coming off that spur. That's the cupboard of doom. It's just the right height for me, where if I stand up, give myself a right good walloping. Matthew just walks face first into the understairs cupboard if he stands up under there. In fact, there's every chance the landing floor might pop up if he stood up in that cupboard. I'll get the TIS test set out now. I'll get it set up down there. I'll try and position the camera somewhere useful so we can get some footage of me running through some end-to-ends on a ring final circuit maybe. And because we've got no equipment plugged in on the socket circuits, we could do some IR testing on those as well. Obviously with a lighting circuit, we've got all the LEDs in circuit, so we couldn't do between L and N, but we certainly can with the line and neutral together to earth. So we can maybe have a look at that as well. I don't want to drag this video out too long into testing because I've covered that endlessly before, both on the test board, out on jobs, and I realise can get a bit boring. But I'll get the test set out and pop a bit of footage together, see how it comes out, and I will speak to you in a bit. So again, one of the things you can do first is clamp onto the earth. Get the TIS MFT Pro if you were lucky enough to have one, and obviously I'm now checking for any diverted neutral current that could be flowing within the earthing on this installation, because I have the water pipe, gas pipes, all sorts to the side of me here, which are obviously connected through the bonding into neighbouring properties potentially, and we want to make sure that there's no current flowing in any of the earthing. So if I come between the earthing conductor and this pipe work during elements of the testing, that I'm not going to become part of that circuit and receive an electric shock. But I'll pop this onto the little stand now because I've pulled some of the cabling out. I am likely going to redress this in full in the end, but I'm just going to pull it apart and work through some dead tests. I'll pop you down and show you some of the end-to-end measurements on a ring final circuit using the TIS test set. Okay, so I can take off the old air clamp now. So if you have got one of the TIS testers, it's really handy. I mean, obviously you can use a clamp meter. I do have the TIS, AC and DCF leakage clamp meter, so I could have used that, but I've got the MFT out and handy. Clamp was right there in the bag, so I thought why not. You can see here we've got the CPCs out for this ring final circuit. I'm just going to clamp on and get some measurements. So if I'm going to have to keep lifting this up from time to time because I can't get it all in shot in this cupboard unfortunately, but it's telling me here that I need to be on the blue and black terminals for the continuity readings, and again, always zero your leads before you do anything. So if I show you the TIS tester, it's showing there the little green zeroed arrow already, but I will re-zero the leads just for the sake of having done it before I start any testing. You know, you could have had the probes on the end or the crock clips or something could have changed in the lead set since the last time you used it. It's always worth doing. So that's giving me a thumbs up and it's happy with that. And again, you can go through your process now of getting your end-to-ends. So you do your end-to-end on your R1, do the RN as well, and then also the CPC. So you're getting all your end-to-ends, and then you do your crossovers between the circuits and zoom off around the place and get your R1, R2 at the socket outlets. I won't show you that because it means messing about with the camera and getting it all set up again. So you'll have to trust that I've done the crossover. But if we do the end-to-ends and see if we've got any open rings, it's often a common find on the old EICRs. So I pop that into test mode. I'll just lift that up and show you. It's gathered a reading. Apologies about the lighting. I'm testing out a new lighting rig. But I've got 0.41 ohms on R1. So that's the R1. The neutrals are just here. So again, we can crop those in and see what we get on that. So I'll save that result into the test instrument so you can save your measurements as you go. Hit test again. So this is on the RN and I'm getting 0.4. It's a shame I couldn't get this into shot and be a bit more professional, but I'm doing my best. And then on your CPCs, let's get the end to end on those. We'd expect these to be a little bit higher. So save that result, hit the test button and see what these come out at. So 0.72, and this is a 2.5, 1.5 mil conductor, and that's kind of what you'd expect. You're roughly 1.67 times. So 0.72 is, you know, there or thereabouts for that calculation. I could get the calculator out and check it. I'm not going to sit and do that now. I will when I review the certificate. So now you make your crossovers, and just to explain how you do that, some people can use Wago connectors. That's what I do. So I mean, you can do this from a socket front or the consumer unit if you wish, but you essentially take your line from one leg of the ring and cross it in with the CPC on the other leg of the ring, and then repeat that connection across your line and your CPC. And some people call it the missing test, but you can also repeat that with the neutral and the CPCs crossed over as well, or the lines, and you know, you can get an accurate idea around the ring if the neutral's adequately connected as well, if you're not just happy with the end-to-end test. So you can do that also if you wish. And again, with the sockets, we can do some IR testing, so we'll maybe do that separately. You need to remember when you're doing IR testing that the CPCs need to be connected into the earthing system, so you can't just simply go, I mean, you can measure them outside and know what the IR value is of the cable around the circuit, but you know, you're supposed to do it with them terminated into the earth bar. So I'll do that as well. Maybe show that on camera, maybe not. And if I just show you the test instrument again, if I hit save, it records that value. So this is the TIS MFT Pro Plus. It's the new model that I've been messing about with for the last week or two now. I'm really impressed with it actually. Some good improvements on the last model. Primarily to do with your RCD testing on EV charge points, and you can, if you have got the old TIS MFT Pro, have a software update where it will do that as well. But we are also involved quite a lot with where we live with earth electrodes, and the big downside with the last version for us was they didn't do RA measurements. As I mentioned on earlier videos talking about this test set, it now does. So it has a segment in there for earth electrode resistance, and they even provide you with the kit to go off and do that. So that's fantastic. So have a little sip of the old coffee out the Yeti cup. These things keep the drinks warm forever. Not advertising, I promise. Yeah, it's one of those with your ring final circuits. On older installs, you'll find very common that you've got open circuit on at least one of the conductors within that ring final. It's just what happens when you're out doing lots of EICRs. This has been fairly recently rewired. You'll notice it's all in blue and brown. The date on the board suggests it was done in around 2014, so it's not horrendously old. You know, there's bits of it that we would have done differently, but every electrician's like that. And like I say, you can't just judge things on workmanship and how it looks to the eye. You know, you're judging these things by terminations, connections, the actual values you record through your test instrument, and you know that generally the regulations have been complied with. That's your assessment when you're doing an EICR. And my OCD is really getting to me with the way this board's dressed, so I'm going to have a go at it myself. I've got all the terminations out anyway, so I'll maybe do the rest of the dead testing, dress it all nicely back away, and then we'll get on with some live testing. And we'll even do some ZS measurements quite safely on light fittings with no exposure to any live terminals. I'll show you how we do that a bit later on in the video. So I've just had a first run through all the dead tests and tried to tidy it up a little bit as I go along. Obviously some of the cables are cut to set lengths now, so that's not always as easy as it could be. But I'm going to have a go at stripping it right back, trying to clean up some of the sleeving that's been brought through and give myself as much extra length as I can. We'll get it put back together, and then we can zip out and do some ZS testing out at the end of circuit. And you know, I've noticed here while I've been working away, we're actually missing a screw in this bottom corner, so we can get that attached in as well. The fact that there's no washers been used is more of an annoyance, but again, you know, we're here to report on the safety of the installation, and you know, despite what I think it is securely held back to the wall, but you know, for the sake of arguing, let's stick a screw in, shall we? And yeah, I'll tidy this up now. Might be a bit of time, you won't notice because it'll just zoom to the next section, and I will show you getting a ZS measurement off a lighting circuit entirely safely with no access to any live parts. While I remember, these are brilliant if you are working inside a consumer unit, mainly because you know they're not metal tipped, so you're not going to be marking any of the inner insulation on any conductors, and also just if you've made a mistake anywhere, it's always better with the old VDE tools as your last line of defence. Obviously any open enclosures shouldn't be energised, but you know, just in case, we use our VDE tools anyway. And I like these because you know, when you're trying to get in the back of the board and grab hold of a cable, they're not going to mark the insulation, and you're not going to cross over between any conductors inside the consumer unit. But yeah, let's pop all this back together and jump on with the video. So you see I've got these pendants behind me, and they are end of line on this circuit, so we can take a ZS measurement. I've shown you before on the channel some of the different ways you can do that. So I've got the TIS light mate here. That could go into the bayonet fitting of that lamp, expose the earth block within the pendant. Obviously while the power was off, you could put your crocodile clip on, go restore the power, take your test measurement, and you know, you've not exposed yourself to any live conductors while you've been doing that. Obviously the pendant itself is open while you're at a distance, so you still do have the live terminals open to the elements, but you know, no one should be near them. Once you finish the test, go turn the power off, retrieve all of your leads, done nice and safely. The other way you can do it, and this is one that leaves no access to any live parts, is to utilise a lead such as this from Q-Tech. Don't know why I'm not looking at the camera there. Yeah, I've shown this on another video as well when we did a full-on garage test. And essentially you can wire that in place of the flex cord drop for the pendant, obviously while the power's off, go and restore power to the circuit with all your probes in, get your test measurement, reverse the process. And then you've got no terminals exposed because you can screw the pendant lamp holder back into the ceiling, and you know, you've not had any exposure to any live terminals, and you've been able to get that ZS measurement quite safely. And again, you can use these on cooker outlet plates. You can wire them into your spotlights, so you loop in, loop out on most spotlights these days. You can pop this in, get a ZS measurement quite safely. And again, these are available with 3-phase connectors. You can put commando sockets on the end. You know, it's not an excuse not to measure your ZS that there is live working and access to live parts. I mean, it'll always be termed live working because the power is on, but your exposure to it can be just as limited as a normal user. And doing this check is something I like to do because it ensures I've not made a mistake, so I've not left any CPCs bridged out with any lines anywhere, that all of my conductors have gone back correctly and are under the right torque and tightness, because you know, that would show through the ZS test, and also how the parallel earths are affecting the installation as a whole. So you know, the only way you are going to get a true measure of impedance with all the switches in place on the final circuit, sometimes you can have control gear, contactors, and things like that, is to take a measurement itself. The calculation will never be accurate. It won't be. You know, often it's on the side of safety, if you like, and it will overestimate rather than underestimate what that ZS is. But in some cases, that's not true. And also you've got the added issue of your PSC and PFC at the point of connection on the circuit, which is always worth checking, and you can only do that while under live conditions. So you know, you don't need to be up at the top of your steps with probes and stuff anymore. You know, that's stuff that doesn't need to happen. You can do this quite safely. It's an important test, and I'll show you how I do it right now. Okay, so I've got that all set up now. You'll see that the pendant's been, the adapter's been wired into the ceiling rows. Power's now on, so that was obviously all done dead. I'm now at a completely safe distance from any of this. There's no exposure to any live terminals. I even connected all of the probes in while the power was off. If I jump down to the TIS test set now, I'm just going to have to look around the camera, so do excuse the poor camera work, but you'll see there that we've got the voltage showing of 240 volts between line and the 240 volts, line and neutral and line and earth. I've got it set to no trip, as you can see down there, and the 30 milliamps. If I hit the test button, it'll now start to run through that test sequence, and again, I'm not near any of this. I'm literally stood in the middle of the room, away from everything, no hands near any of the bitey stuff, and I'm now getting a ZS measurement, and you'll see there it's giving me a value of 0.8 ohms between line and neutral, so it's giving me a measurement there which I can reference back into the dead tests. Also between line and the protective earth, which you would expect to be a little bit higher because the earthing conductor is smaller, and again we have got a value of PSC and PFC at this point of connection. So we can be confident that under fault conditions, if we have an issue here, it's going to operate the MCB and the RCD, and we've verified that through a live test measurement. You know, there's no possibility of any connections being left in the wrong place. All I've got to do now is go and turn the power off, remove all of this, put the ceiling rows back in, which again, you can do while the power is off, and then we do the functional test just to make sure the lights work. Total verification of an electrical test. Now obviously with your EICRs, you know, the level of testing and the depth you go to is entirely up to you as the inspector. It is different to if you do an initial verification, and yeah, it's something that you need to keep in mind. You don't need to go as in depth as you otherwise would on initial verification, but you need to be happy as the inspector that the test results you've obtained have helped you come to the conclusions that you have. Yeah, just thought I'd show you that, so you can see as I step back, you can see the distance I was from everything. And as I said, you could just crop clip onto the earth bar, put your probes in with the little adapter I showed you, and get your test measurement there, equally at a safe distance and nowhere near any of the bitey stuff. But you know, this took like 30 seconds to wire in. It's not a big job, and you can do it while you're going around on your first fix. We've got several of these adapters, and makes life a lot easier. Sorry, on your second fix, makes life a lot easier when you come to testing. So I hope you found that useful. If you want to leave any comments, I have missed a few observations out from discussion during the course of this video, so if you've spotted them and you want to drop them in below, let me know. I know that a lot of apprentices follow my channel, so if you are watching and you're interested, join in on the comments, see some of the things you may have taken note of that I've not mentioned. We've got the C2 issues largely under control now. I've tidied up that consumer unit, just need to secure the last little bit of cabling in there and take the trunking lid cover off that somebody's left on for some reason. That's been on several years because it's covered in plaster. Go and tidy up out in the garage, and otherwise that's this one closed up, ready to pass back to the letting agent and landlord. All the certification's been done. Again, if you skip back to an earlier video, I think it's maybe 4 or 5 ago, I showed you the naked desktop on an iPad. I've been filling that in. Unfortunately, my iPad has gone flat, so I can't show you that now. But it is all in there, and through the cloud sync, all your data is safe. It's stored on the local device, synced up to the cloud. So when I turn that back on and get onto my laptop, the certificate will be there, ready for mastering, and I can send that off the same day to the client. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Please get involved in the comments, thumbs up, thumbs down, depending on if you like the content or not, and I will see you all on the next one.